And the new kid on the block, also the Drag Slash killer, is the Team Associated DR10M. So the DR10M, this is the new one. So you can go ahead and pre-order this at a variety of places. Most online places have it on pre-order. And it really depends on where you want to order it. But I'm going to go over the features and why I think this car is awesome. Now, keep in mind, it's a completely different beast. And it's at a different price point. So this is a race platform, an actual race platform, whereas the Drag Slash really isn't. Drag Slash, I've had some other videos. These are just really bandit arms, front and rear. They're perfectly flat. The DR10M, in reality, is a modified DR10. That's what it is. And I'm actually going to use A-Main's pictures. And the reason why is because I don't want to click individually here. I can just go left and right. But the DR10 as well as the M, this is the M version, you have the gull wings, front and rear, which allows you to sit the car lower. Suspension setups are actually a lot better on this. If you have a Drag Slash, just enjoy it, keep it. It's yours, drive it. If you're thinking of getting something a little higher end, go with this one. There's nothing wrong with having a Drag Slash, but there are huge differences in suspension. Now this, if you look at the front end, this is really an SR10. So this is an SR10 front end, but I do prefer this bumper over my DR10. The DR10 bumper is more of a short course type bumper. It sort of scoops up. This one is flat. I prefer this one. The body mounts, these I find to be a lot better because they're farther forward. They just hold onto the body so the body doesn't flex as much with the air. So it's more stability. So those are big pluses versus if we look at the Drag Slash, they're up here. Now they did change them a little for the Drag Slash. So let's make them a little bigger. They are adjustable post, but they're farther back versus farther forward. The body mounts, the closer to the corners of the body, the more stable the body will be at high speeds. Whereas here, well, you can see it's right on the shock tower. Now you could put the regular Slash body mounts in the back if you wanted. And then these, well, there's really not much you can do. I guess you could flip these around and move them forward, but then they would move farther in, which isn't good. And then you can get some tire rub with the wind, making the body shift up and down. Now, if you look at just even the shocks, let's use A-Main's pictures. You get aluminum bodies here. These are threaded. So there is a major difference. Now, if you want something inexpensive, now here's the thing. This one's going to be a little pricier. But again, it's an actual race kit. So it's $369. Let's say $370 as of this video. That's the advert price. And the online places that have them, such as A-Main that I was using, same price. Tower Hobbies, same price. I think Horizon may have it as well. I haven't checked, to be honest. But if you compare it to other associated vehicles, it's priced about right. This is the SE6.2. That's actually what I have. I love this truck. It's really expensive compared to when I got it. When I got it, I think it was $330. Now it's $375, but inflation, right? Everything. So it's in the price range of an actual race kit, and it is like a race kit because you have to build it. So that's the other thing too. It is a kit, and I'll be honest, I love kits. I will always, go for kits, try to push for kits, if the individual has the skills. So if you think you have the skills and you can put it together, go with a kit. Team Associated manuals, they're not that bad. They're not the best. I think Techno has the best manuals. Actually, Traxxas has really good manuals too for their Slash kit, Stampede kit. But Techno's one of the best for the complexity. Team Associated is second. There's definitely some worse ones out there. But it's usually minor little things. for this, but it's pretty straightforward to build. Now, here's the thing with this. The pictures are just for show. It's just for promo. They do not come with wheels and tires. They do not come with any electronics. You're just getting a rolling chassis that you have to build. So that's something to keep in mind. Imagine this without any electronics. No servo, battery, receiver, nothing. So you're going to need a transmitter. So that's where the cost is going to come up. The Drag Slash is $500 as of this video. Right? There's no discount codes, right? Manufacturer does not allow coupons. Maybe Traxxas will have a discount. Maybe some shops will have a special discount or something. They might have a promo if they want to start a class, drag class, or maybe Black Friday they'll have some deals. I have no idea. But let's go ahead and look at some of the other, say, race-oriented chassis. Now, this is a mid-motor as well, and that's a big difference. But notice the pricing. See, it's really not that far off, and you still need a front and a rear end. So that's something to keep in mind. Here, you would buy this and you would upgrade your DR10s. Really, you're getting a pretty good deal. Now, if you want something inexpensive, just get a DR10. DR10's $320, and to be honest, it's light years ahead of the Drag Slash. The Drag Slash is just cool looking mainly because of the body, although the other one's cool because of the body too. But tuning the suspension, the quality of the materials, you cannot compare. You really cannot. So if you want something inexpensive, just go with the DR10. Now, moving on. One of the reasons why I'm picking on the Drag Slash, I'm not saying it's a bad vehicle. I'm just saying there's other things that you can get with the same money. If you really want this, it's capitalist society. Go for it. Your money, spend it on whatever you want, as long as it's legal. But if you really want something that'll last a little longer, you'll be a little happier with, get something quality. DR10, less money. I mean, you can get batteries and chargers for this car for the same price of the Drag Slash. Now, this over here, again, it's a race kit. So let me just go over some of the features, and then I'll go over some possible items that you can buy to try to keep it low cost. Now, then again, if you're watching this and cost isn't really an issue, then, well, there's a lot of things out there that you can get. But let me go over some of the features. So the front end, to be honest, it's an SR10 front end. So steering, everything's going to be the same. Now, the reason why I'm saying it's an SR10, it's because of the front bumper. The reality is the front end, if you eliminate the bumper, is pretty much the same for DR10, their buggies, SR10. It's all a buggy front end, really. So what is the difference? The difference here that you're getting is really transmission is the biggest thing. Transmission, this is a mid-motor setup. And because it's a mid-motor setup, there's going to be some changes and some differences. Usually, I'll be honest, I tried this a long time ago. Unfortunately, I don't have any footage. I tried taking an SE 6.1 that I used to have and a B6.1. Was it 0.1? I think it was a 0.1. And tried making a drag car mid-motor. Oh, it was tough to make that thing handle. As soon as you were off power, I mean, that thing would just go everywhere. And even when you were on power, sometimes if the surface was not a high traction surface, oh boy, yeah, good luck with that one. So I found that rear motor was a lot easier to control. Now, there is a difference with this transmission, and something that Associated would emphasize is, yes, this is a mid-motor, just like many of the top chassis are mid-motor. But the gears, this is a 4-gear system versus a 3 or a 5 versus a 3, right? DR10 is a 3. Drag Slash is a 3. So Drag Slash, you would have the top shaft, right, with the gear, and then idler gear, and then the differential. So here you have an even number. Now, what's the advantage of that? Well, this is the advantage. If you have an even number, so this is the rear of the car, this is forward. If the motor is spinning forward, so the top is going forward, it's going this way, right? The momentum of the motor is going forward, right? That's the way it's spinning. Which means that if this is spinning forward, the next gear, this is where the spur would be connected over here, this is going to be spinning back. Which means that the center gear is going to be spinning forward. Which means that the other one is going to be spinning back. which means that it's going to spin the differential forward. So that means that your tires and your motor are going to be spinning in the same direction. So when this spins forward, they spin forward. Everything spins forward, so you have the whole momentum going forward. This is something that's going to help you because the forces with a 3-gear system mid-motor, they're spinning in opposite directions, so they're actually sort of countering each other in a way. By spinning them together, what's going to end up happening is this is going to put force down on the chassis. And by putting force down on the chassis, that's going to increase the amount of force that goes to your tires, therefore more friction. Remember, for friction, you have a coefficient of friction, and then you multiply it by the force. And if you're not driving, it would just be the force of gravity on the chassis, so whatever the weight of the vehicle is times that coefficient. But once you start driving, you apply a force, right? The harder it accelerates, the more force, in this case, you're going to have. Now, something else is these. You can actually adjust the height of the transmission. So you can have the transmission go lower, you can have it go higher to adjust the angle here. Now, what is the advantage? Well, this is the advantage. If you angle these down, now it really depends on your drive style and what your goal is and your overall setup, right? What fluid you're using, springs, everything's going to be a variable. But generally, when you spin shafts like this, they want to straighten out completely. So if you angle them down and you accelerate, they're going to want to straighten out, which means they're going to go up. And if they go up, that means your whole car is going to drop. So it's going to keep the rear lower. It's squatting. Now, something else that you could do, right? So then you can squat, it'll be lower, and then the front generally comes up a little. Maybe you want that, maybe not. Now, if you angle these up, for example, right? Now I'm exaggerating the angle. If you angle these up, so the way you would do that is drop the transmission, right? These would angle up because now this point is lower, so this point would be higher. They're going to want to straighten out, which means it's going to lift the chassis. But keep in mind, equal and opposite reaction. If the chassis goes up, the tires must go down. So that means that it's going to put more force on the tires down. Again, more force times the coefficient of friction means more traction, potentially. So now that you have the motor, for example, that's spinning the same direction, that's taking some of that rotational force and pushing the chassis down. But now you're having this that is lifting up. So now you have two forces that are going to act on each other. Long story short, you're putting more pressure, depending on your setup, on your tires, potentially. You don't want to overdo it. You really want to play around with it, test it. It all depends on the surface. Sometimes you want more traction. Sometimes you want less traction. You don't want too much traction where all of a sudden you just jump and bounce on the wheelie bar. Now, the wheelie bar is actually something that I really don't like wheelie bars. If you can stay off the wheelie bar, I think that's the same thing. Some guys ride them. So they'll put soft rubber tires and then they'll just ride them. So this will sort of absorb, or sometimes you'll see a shock here in the middle. What I like about stock class 13.5 is there's no wheelie bar. And the reason why is every time you go on the wheelie bar, you're taking weight off of the traction tires. That's the reason why. If you go too hard on it, you'll sort of bounce up on the wheelie bar, lose control. But if you ride it, I mean, some people will soften up their suspension, so really they're driving on 6 wheels. I don't know why. I mean, I understand why they do it. I just don't see why they don't just change their driving style. But going to the wheelie bar, something that I'm noticing here is there's no notches. This is just straight. So you're really going to have to crank this in and make sure that both sides are measured and they're even. So that's going to be a challenge for people that do depend on the wheelie bar or use the wheelie bar. Now, if you're going into a modified class, you're probably going to have the wheelie bar. I mean, you're supposed to, per my interpretation of the rules. So that's something to keep in mind. You're going to have to measure this carefully and really adjust. And if you hit the wheelie bar hard, but you hit one side more than the other, this could potentially shift and then throw off the car. So keep that in mind. Just be careful with these adjustments. I mean, if you're an expert, then you don't have to worry about it. You already know. Or if you've been in it for a while. Some other really cool features. I mean, the main thing is that 4-gear transmission. So you want an even number. Even number is great, and it has it. Why? Because then the pinion becomes the fifth, so you have an odd number overall, which means the initial and the final gear are going to be spinning the same direction. The carbon fiber shock tower is very nice. Quality, I believe it's 4 millimeters. This is going to be durable, robust as well, not very flexible, which you really don't want a flexible shock tower in the rear. The other thing too, the adjustments, these shocks can be adjusted to be very, very vertical, which is a major plus. If you angle them, you're going to essentially soften them in essence, even if you have the same spring rate, everything else, versus if you put them straight up and down. So you can actually run them straight up and down, have a softer system versus angling them and having a harder system. So that's something to keep in mind, just tunability. You do get the aluminum parts, like I mentioned, for the gearbox to hold it. Well, this is just a mount, so this is plastic. But you get this carbon fiber reinforcement between the two, very rigid for the small piece. This is where the motor would sit, again, mid-motor. Now, the biggest difference is going to be transmission. So if you've ever tried a 3-gear transmission and you thought, wow, this is really difficult to tune, that 4th gear, just from a physics perspective, it's going to make a difference. Now, something else, gull wings. Again, I've talked about these. Something way better than the Drag Slash. Way better. Drag Slash, they're straight. I mean, if you've ever had a Bandit or a Slash, these are just straight. There's nothing, really. These, they're angled, but notice how low this also sits right in here. Versus if you've ever had the Slash or Bandit, the fulcrum is right down here. So this car will sit low. The DR10 sits low, or you can make it sit low. This is just sort of the performance version. This is the high-end version of the DR10. Is it worth the money? Yes, it's a race kit. That's why it costs more. Look at the different chassis, the carbon fiber that's being used. So it's a let's call it double-decker chassis that you're getting here. This is not the best view. Oh, we'll use this one. So here are these two sides. Now, yes, this is DR10 right here. And the chassis just screws on to right about here probably. Just from looking at the other ones, tearing the other ones down, building them right about there. And then you have these plates here. This is what actually adds your reinforcement. Why? So that you can lose all of that weight and extra material here on the sides. That's the reason why you lose all of this. You really don't need this. Plus your electronics will all be centered. They'll all be in the center. So all your weight is here in the center. That way there's less weight to, if your car starts steering one way or the other, it's easier to correct because your mass is centered versus if you have it here on the side. Look at it about this way. I mean, don't do this, but if you've done this before, if you run with, say, 2 5-pound weights, which would be 10 total, and you run with them close to your chest and then try turning and correcting your direction. And then just stretch out your arms holding the 5-pound weights and then try running and turning. It's going to be harder the farther out the weight is left to right. That's one of the advantages of having most of your weight centered. Look, your ESC is right here, right in front of your motor, receiver. So everything just lines up right here. Again, those are the major advantages. This is why this will be, say, the Drag Slash killer. I mean, if you say, well, it's a DR10 killer as well, it's the same brand, and this is just a higher end. But I would agree with you. Yes, I do think this is better than the DR10. Not at price point, right? Again, if you're $320, get the DR10. Go out there, have fun. That's a great car to get started with, I think. I think it's actually probably the best car to get started with. But if you're looking for something that's higher end, but you don't want to spend, these prices on a chassis that doesn't even have suspension, this is a very good deal. And it's a kit. You put it together, so it's the quality of a kit. Associated has been making kits for a really, really long time. Now, let's see. Let's just say you want this because you just want a high-end quality kit. Now you're going to have to save money on electronics. Okay, let's just say. Again, if money's not really an issue, then don't worry about this part. But you can go with something like a just stock 13.5. So if you wanted a stock class, it's not going to be the fastest thing. Or you can do something like this. Or you can just buy the motor. The motor is $100, and then you can get the just stock ESC. But to be honest, this is a really good deal right over here. Now that is a just stock ESC. Now there's other ESCs that you can get that cost a little more. There's ESCs that you can get that cost a little less. You can get a Trinity motor, 13.5. I really like Trinity motors. And those Trinity motors are about $100 for just the regular one, unless you go with the team spec or the certified motors. But let's say you just go with a $100 motor. ESC, you can go with a quick run ESC. I mean, those things are rated for, I don't know if it's 7, I really don't remember. Let's look it up. So it's a quick run ESC by Hobbywig, and the one that I'm thinking is this 120. Now the peak is 760. This will easily handle your 13.5 motor. Now if you want to run a 4.5, it will handle 4.5 as well. This motor is this ESC. This is actually what one of my buddies put on his DR10, and it works great. The only thing about this ESC though is there's no turbo and there's no boost, which is a problem. But if you get the other ESC, the just stock also doesn't have that. But you can adjust the timing on the ESC, so that is something that you could do. But in essence, it's pretty much just a stock ESC. But the price, can't really beat the price. And they take discount codes. That's something else to keep in mind. Now, if you want to go all out and buy the Macklin drag ESC, go for it. You really don't need it, but that one's $260. So then you're spending a pretty penny. So at that point, if you're going with stuff like that, that's a whole different thing. But let's just say you want to keep it inexpensive. You can spend less than $200 on motor and ESC, say $150. We're just rounding it. Servo, you can get a nice servo for $50, for example, somewhere around there. ProTech makes some really nice servos. I used to like running Savox until I started running ProTech, and they last and they're smooth. Now I usually run these guys up here, but you don't really need much as far as a servo. And you know what? There's some inexpensive $20 servos that you can get. I bought a Rage servo for $20, and it's a drag car. You're not really going to be turning. So let's say $200, you have your basic electronics. Now I'm not counting batteries and chargers into the equation. Why? Because you're going to need them for a drag slash or I'm not even talking about the DR10. DR10 is your best budget buy. Way better than this. But compared to this, $200, you're now over by about $70. You're still going to need wheels and tires. And you're going to need a transmitter. Futaba 3PV is a good transmitter. Really good range. Far better range than this one, which you'd probably end up upgrading your receiver at some point. Although, if you're only running, you're running less than 140 feet, so range isn't really an issue. Most of them will be able to deal with that range. I mean, the Traxxas stock transmitter will do that no problem. So that's probably not an issue. So we're still, let's see, we were at, say, $70. What did I say? 140. Keep in mind discount codes. You can buy them month by month, use different discount codes and get stuff for less money. But right now, let's just use the full price. So 150. Now you're looking at 220 above. Wheels and tires, you're looking at about $300 plus body, $350 more than the drag slash for something fully built that is of actual race quality. Or you can just get started with the DR10. Same front end, pretty much. I mean, really, the suspension arms are the same as well. But, But this isn't about this. It's about the really cool features, which, to be honest, I do want this car. I'm going to consider getting this one. But, again, the main features. Mid-motor, none of the other cars have it. There's no way. I mean, there is a way that you can convert this into mid-motor. I converted a slash into mid-motor using a nitro slash chassis. You can watch my videos where I test run the vehicle. If you look at my ultimate chassis videos where I used a nitro slash chassis on an electric slash and then ran it on the track. I was surprised. It's lighter too. Oh, and that's the other thing too, the weight. I don't have the weight yet, but this is certainly going to be much lighter. And the reason why I'm saying this is going to be more than likely the same weight, if not lighter, as the DR10 chassis. The DR10 chassis, if you've seen my videos, is at least 200 grams lighter than the Traxxas model. I mean, I weighed both of mine. So that's something else. You're saving on weight, and all of your weight is centered. Well, by centered, I mean it's on the center line, not centered on the chassis. It's on the center line. So those are some of the advantages. So is this kit worth it? Yes, it is. I believe it is. And just for fun, let's see, let's do that. I'm curious. I'm just going to click on one. It doesn't matter. It takes discount codes. So A-Main, you can get a discount. So punched it in. As of this video, as of now, there is a 25 off 300. So you can get $25 off. Next month, maybe they'll have a better one. Well, maybe not. Last month, they had a 25 off 250. Now they have a 25 out of 300, which is kind of odd. Usually they would do 30. But maybe they'll have a 35 out of 350 or 30 out of 350. I have no idea. I don't know. But think about it. You could use this for the chassis. You saved yourself 25. You can use this for, I don't know, the motor. And you just saved yourself another 10. That's 35. Next month, get your ESC. Maybe some tires, although you would have to pay for shipping because it's under $100 purchase. So just play around with the discount codes. Just go to the bottom, discount code. But A-Main offers discount codes for associated vehicles. Tower Hobbies does not, so that's something to consider. Right? Just throwing that out there. So there's ways to save a little bit of money. So key features. You have a rigid carbon fiber shock tower, 4-gear transmission, which makes the pinion fifth, odd number of gears. Motor is going to be spinning the same direction as the tires, or the tires will be spinning the same direction as the motor, which means it's going to apply that force down on the chassis, which is good, right? Because this is going to be going down and through here. As the tires go this way, it's going to want to lift, but the motor's spinning in the same direction, so the motor's going to apply force down here. Is it a lot? Probably not. Because the motor's not in the rear over here, the front end's not going to want to lift up as easily. Potential problem, though, that you could have is when you go off power, this could potentially lose traction and get really squirrely. So keep that in mind. Gull wings. You have gull wings, just like the DR10, just like many of associated vehicles. Which on my SE 6.2, I actually installed the gull wings in the front because it only had them in the rear stock. Oh, huge difference. But that's for carpet racing. So the gull wings are amazing. These C-hubs or caster blocks, they sit a little lower. So this car is just going to be able to run lower to the ground. You have the SR10 style bumper. The body mounts are farther forward. Look how far forward they are. And they're farther back, and they're also wide, which means that the body's going to be more stable on the vehicle. Those are big, big features. Those are key components. So body, suspension, transmission, carbon fiber, also really nice wheelie bar, chassis. Is this kit worth it? Yes, it is. If you want to spend a lot more money, well, go with the other race chassis. But, the point isn't, should you go with something like this, for example? It's more along the lines of, is this worth it for price point? Again, price point, they're in two different leagues. And the reality is, if you want a drag car that's good for low budget, don't bother. Just stick with this one. If you want a high end, just jump over to this. And if you do end up with both of them, which would be awesome, you have interchangeable suspension parts between the two. Well, that's my review and my thoughts on the DR10M that is coming out, available for pre-order. Share in your comments. Share in the comments. What are your thoughts? What are your opinions? Which one would you buy? Would you consider one? Which one would you recommend? The ones that you have driven. Let's just say you have a Drag Slash, or you've driven a Drag Slash, or a DR10, or even the Losi. What features do you like about them? What features do you not like about them? Keep in mind that people that are interested in this are going to be reading the comments, and the comments should be a place where these individuals can get some other opinions and other feedback. So please leave your comments below. Now, thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe if you have not. I'll catch you in the next one.
Oh, my hair! My tongue! My rod!